So we're gonna start the night off with a steak au poivre, which is, in this case, we're using a green peppercorn sauce. If you have the recipe packet, I gave 2 versions. And the reason I did that is because the first one is a flambe, and not everyone is comfortable lighting something on fire in their kitchen. And you should be careful if you're gonna light something on fire, but in this case, I thought, well, I'll give you a version that does not flambe. So if you wanna make it at home, it's very similar. But if you wanna try it a la flambe, you can do that as well. So I have everything ready to go. Helps if I take off we had a little early for the people who are members to get to join early. So we made some aioli, so that's what that was. So tonight we're gonna start with a steak. So we have this steak, I'm just doing one. I'm not cooking for 4 people tonight, but I think you'll get the idea. I always recommend if you're gonna make food for yourself or for a party that you mise en place. That means you gather everything you need. It's a great way to find out that you didn't have any more of that red wine vinegar. What are you gonna substitute with? So always mise en place, always gather your ingredients, always make sure you have everything you think you have. Make sure that everything is in the condition ready to cook, okay? And then the second thing I just wanna say is really fast, we're gonna do is a Hollandaise sauce, which is an egg emulsion sauce. And the reason I'm saying that is I'm gonna put the butter on low so it starts to melt so that we can clarify it, okay? So just really fast, just a regular saucepan. And then I already weighed my butter and put it in here. So I'm just gonna have it on the back burner on a low temp so I don't have to think too much about it. The first thing you want to do is I have some clarified butter already in here, ready to go, is add a little clarified butter to your pan. And the reason we're using clarified butter instead of regular butter is just so that it's less likely to burn. I'm gonna get this started. Okay. So we're gonna let that warm up and we're gonna address our steak. So anytime you wanna sear a steak in a pan, you wanna pat it dry. And that is so that you get a nice caramelization on the crust. Okay. So I do both sides. Put that away. And then you wanna season it. And I know that beef makes people nervous. Or salt makes people nervous, but when it comes to beef, you need it. So obviously, if for health reasons, it doesn't work for you, then use less salt, but I recommend that you season it liberally. Okay. Let me get this pan. And once the butter is kind of sizzling the way it is now, it should be hot enough. All right, there we go. Just gonna wash my hands quickly so we don't get sick. Okay. So we're gonna give that steak about 4 minutes aside. In the meantime, I have some shallots to chop, and I'm gonna tell you what else we have. So we'll go through our ingredients, make sure I haven't forgotten anything. So we have our clarified butter in there. The shallots I'm gonna chop while the steak is cooking. We have, in this little dish, we have 2 tablespoons of Sear and a 1/4 cup of cognac. You can use brandy or cognac, and if you don't have port, you can just use the cognac or brandy, okay? And then we have salt and pepper, as we need. We have meat floss. Now, in this case, I purchased it online. You can opt to make it yourself. If you make stock, if you make bone broth from scratch, you can do that. It's just a very thick, like meat sauce. Okay. And then we have our heavy cream. And I have my peppercorns. I've drained them already. probably a little more than they said. I like peppercorn. And then I do have some red wine vinegar ready. Now the red wine vinegar is so that at the end of the dish, when you've pulled it all together, because it is cream based, it might be a little too rich. And so you just need a little bit of the red wine vinegar to kind of cut through that richness. You could use something like sherry vinegar, but it might start to take over the taste. So red wine vinegar just has a nice acidity. It has a brightness to it without being too strong. And red wine vinegar, because everything else is dark. This is a fish stock we'd probably, or a chicken stock we'd probably use white vinegar. Okay. So let's move this out of the way. While the steak is cooking. Just checking. I usually use my stove, not my little pan. Oh, and I wanted to show you really fast. The only place locally I can find green peppercorns in brine is on Amazon. Lenardi's might have them, but I didn't see them. So that's the brand. It's a French brand. Fantastic. All right. Let's get that shallot sliced.
Hey, Amoreena, we've got a quick question in the chat.
Yes. Yes.
No, is the beef stuff like paste or is it like a gel? What's the consistency there?
Oh, so it's so the glass is essentially you start with this much stock and you end up with this much stock. And so if you've made a true sorry, I'm just looking at the clock. If you've made a true bone broth, meaning you've used bones, then and you don't add salt to it, because if you add salt, you can't reduce it that much. Then it will get kind of gelatinous from the gelatin that came off of the bones when you were making the broth. So, and then beef broth or bone broth is a lot of people like bone broth. I think it cooks longer than beef stock will. Beef stock is carrots and celery and onions and parsley and bay leaves and black pepper and thyme. It's also water and some bones that you cooked in the oven, that you caramelize in the oven. I'm not getting my normal color off of this, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, shallot. So whenever you're holding a knife, I really recommend you learn how to, if you don't already at home, that you learn how to choke up on your knife. A lot of people hold them down here, but actually you have less control. I know it can feel intimidating if you don't usually cut like this, but that's what this hilt is for. Literally, so your fingers can go like that, and then your thumb like that. Okay. All right. So onions, shallots are cut a similar way. For a mince, you're going to start by kind of just putting the heel, and then you're going to take your knife and you're going to slide it through. All right. So you're going to kind of start with the heel of your knife, and you're not putting a lot of pressure. You should have a very sharp knife. I said this in the last little group, but we want a sharp knife because a sharp knife is a super knife. All right, so I'm just feeling that steak to see where it's at. It's getting close. A sharp knife is a safer knife because you're not putting as much pressure. You want to just slowly slide it through. And then when it comes to this, when you've gone through 3-4 times, then you're going to want to just start with your tip of your knife and push down. This actually is a really tall shallot. I'm not going to use very much of it. Okay, and then we're going to claw. So we're going to take our hands just like a claw. And we're going to go straight through. Like I said, I'm really not going to use all of this one. I'm going to pull that steak off before we get too dark. Okay. That is not great color, but it's perfect. just kind of push on it. You can tell how done it is. I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. We're gonna pull this pan off. Okay, what you can see is that I quickly just dumped a little bit of oil that was in there, the butter that was in there, into the garbage over there. And so now we have all this delicious goodness. What we're making tonight is called an integral sauce. And the reason it's called that is because we're integrating the juices from the meat we cooked. It can be chicken, it can be beef, it can be lamb, it can be pork, it can be anything. When you have this caramelization on your pan, then that's what you're going to try and fill up. So we're just going to put these shallots in here.
Amoreena, is the oven?
Yes.
Just warming.
Sorry?
We have a question here. Is the oven cooking or is it just warming?
Oh, I keep the oven on when I'm sorry. Thank you. That's a great question, actually. I always have the oven on. When I'm cooking, I like to have a warm oven so that I can keep food hot. All right. We need to bring our ingredients back. And now we're going to do the fun part. I'm going to quickly, I've actually turned off the heat for a minute. Scrape up some bits there. And I'm going to, so if you're using a gas stove, I do not recommend that you, Rich, do you have it on this shot? I do not recommend that you pour the alcohol in while the stove is on because it will flambe whether you want it to or not. So we're gonna let this cook for a minute. We're gonna let it burn itself out. And, oh, there it is, see? It did it itself. All right. That was a quick flambe. It was much more exciting when I tested it earlier. All right. So now we want to make sure we get all these good bits off the bottom of the pan before we go any further. See how that pan that was kind of dirty? It's pretty clean now. All right, we're gonna add all the rest of our ingredients, except for the butter. We're gonna add the cream. Meat gloss. Or the gloss, I should say. Start with that much, and we're gonna see how it looks. All right. So you want to boil this until it gets to the consistency of a sauce. So it's not quite there. I think people get nervous about boiling cream, but actually that's how you get it to thicken up and become a nice sauce. And I am going to test it. That is good. Okay, I don't think it needs any more salt. So you're gonna want to taste it at this point, decide if it needs salt. I think the temperature and texture are just about right. I think there's plenty of gloss in it. So I don't think it needs to be any meatier than that. And now I'm gonna stir the butter in. I know, you're thinking all that cream, and now you're stirring butter in. What can I tell you? The French like their cream and their butter. Right, Catherine, if you're on here? Okay.
Yes, yes, and yes, more butter.
Right? You're from Normandy. I know you like your butter. Okay. I'm sorry, it's not fancy French butter though, Catherine. All right. Get that up a little bit again. Okay.
You're going to let us know when you've got a quick moment, because I've got a couple of questions as we go.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, one question just popped up that said, when cooking with gas, what temperature would you do when cooking the cream? High or medium high?
You want it to be boiling because you do want it to boil. You don't want it to go crazy though. So you're probably going to do kind of a medium high flame. You're going to just have to keep an eye on it. Just having this sauce cook get a little warmer. Because you do want it to be boiling. You just don't want it to scorch and burn, and it shouldn't in this form. It should be okay. Okay, so at this point, I mean, see how quickly that came together? This is the sauce you're going to do last. You're going to do it, and then you're going to eat your dinner, okay? You're going to have your steak cooked. You're going to have your vegetables ready. You're going to have, you're going to be ready to eat. This is the last thing you do. It's better to let your steak sit in an oven that's not going to cook it any further than to have any sauces sitting around. Any other questions?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, Christine would like to know, where can you buy good French butter around here?
That's a good question. I think some of my friends might know. Is it the place up in Stanford Mall? I'm drawing a blank of what it's called. The Narnies might have some. I don't know. Does anyone have any suggestions on where you buy good French butter? I think I've seen it actually at Trader Joe's. I've seen some at Whole Foods. All right. So I'm just adding just a little bit of vinegar to this sauce. This is absolutely about personal preference. How vinegary, I mean, you don't want it to be vinegary. This is a cream sauce. You want it to be rich and creamy. You want those green peppercorns to be the star of that show. But you also don't want it to be completely flat because it's lots of cream and intense flavors. All right.
Amoreena, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
So, only because I've come across a lot of recipes lately that are asking for green peppercorns. What's the difference between a green peppercorn and a caper?
They're completely different things, but that's a great question. So,
a lot the last.
yeah. So, I moved everything. Let me grab my black pepper.
Okay. I don't mean to throw you off.
No, you're good. I just didn't want my stove cluttered. So, Rich, you can do that camera. So this is a black pepper, right? So green peppercorns, white, red, these are actually kind of dry, but they all look like this. They're hard little balls. These are brined green peppercorns. Right. So they're still pepper, they're still this, but they've been soaked in a brine. And a caper is actually a flower bed. Caperberry is actually a flower bed. So that's what the difference is. So this is actually the green version of peppers. They're slightly less astringent. They're I prefer green and white pepper to black pepper, but it's the same family of whatever their product. the same family. Yeah. So it's still a pepper.
Okay.
Or a pepperberry. Okay. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, good. All right, our steak. So we're gonna see how I did. I should probably have sharpened this knife. Speaking of sharp knives, it's sharp. It's just not as sharp as I would have liked. And I am seeing some juice. I'm gonna save some of this for our next sauce. So I'm gonna cut it all, but I'm only gonna plate some of it now. We'll see how it goes. Oh, it looks decent. I'm going to put that juice in the sauce because why waste it, right? That's more flavor.
Hey, Marina, are you, is there a reason why you slice the steak at an angle?
just because it'll look prettier when I put it on the plate in a minute. Okay, so if this was a show where we were making a dish, a whole dish, I would probably have shown you how to make French fries or mashed potatoes or whatever. I love French fries with steaks with sauces like this. So we're gonna kind of fan this out a little bit. We're gonna stir that meat I just added in. Meat sauce. So sauce is completely a personal preference. In our family, I like to get tons of sauce. I love sauce. Rich prefers a little less sauce. So that's my husband, for those of you who don't know. So you have to find that happy medium with the people in your life.
Do the peppercorns add a lot of heat to the sauce?
They're actually relatively mild. They add kind of more of an herbalness, an herbally taste to the sauce. They definitely have a little bit of that pepper, right? They have a little bite because they're pepper. But I don't know, Richie, if you want to show that camera. So that's what it looks like. But imagine that with like a pile of French fries or a big green salad. So this is an integral sauce, okay? Also known as a pan sauce. So you have everything else ready and done. You cook your steak last. You make your sauce, and you're ready to go. Any questions before I move on?
You have a lot of yums in the chat.
I know. I didn't taste it, but I'm good with it. I'll give it to Rich, and he can comment on how it is.
Tasting it because we all want to.
Okay, good. I'll be nice. I won't taste it. Rich will taste it off camera, and no one will see.
Amoreena, Michael says the butcher shop at Stanford is called Shallots. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. Shallots?
I think I know which one you mean, Mike. Any one of you would know. I'm just going to turn my volume up a little bit. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, and there's also a question. Can you tell us about of steak?
Oh, that was New York. New York actually isn't my favorite, but I went to Whole Foods and they had nothing. It was ridiculous. So I got a New York, but I actually use top sirloin a lot. I like the flavor the best. Filet mignon is classic with that dish, but honestly, that's one of those things. It's what steak do you like? I think it's like, I know I have lots of wine friends on this call. It's like wine, right? It's not understanding what you like and your favorite flavor profile and going with it. That's probably one of the best things you can do for your own cooking is understand what you like and what you don't like. And, maybe learn to like some other things. But so for me, New York's good, but top sirloin is my favorite. But if you love filet mignon, use filet mignon. If you like ribeye, use ribeye. It'll all be good.
And you've got one
question before we move on. Yes.
Is it okay to cook the steak cold or should it be at room temperature for a bit?
I usually bring my steak to room temperature because when you do that, you know what you're starting with. You can more accurately cook it. So if that steak was out for an hour, and so I know that if I do 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I know about what temperature it's going to be on the inside. You can use an instant read meat thermometer, of course. I usually go by feel. So there's the old, I've heard a couple different ones. I've heard to use the palm of your hand here. I've always used right here. And like this is going to be rare if you're not squeezing, you use a little bit. And then if you make a fist, that's usually like medium well done. But it's a lot of it's just cooking. Cooking is like getting a little dirty, right? Like you have to touch things and you have to, so don't be afraid to like touch the meat as you cook it and get to know what the feel is, even on something like chicken. When you're cooking chicken, you want that well done, obviously. So get to know what that feels like when that's done. Okay. Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay, cool. So I actually have to wash that whisk really fast. I'm sorry, I wasn't planning ahead very well, was I? But what we're gonna do next is our emulsification. So a hollandaise is an egg yolk that butter has been emulsified into. And earlier, some of you were on the call because, like I said, the members of the next stage get to come on a little earlier. And we made mayonnaise, and mayonnaise is a cold emulsification. And so with a cold emulsification, we use things like mustard or garlic and a little vinegar to help the oil grab or help the egg yolk actually grab the oil. So we emulsify with cold emulsification that way. With a hot emulsification, like hollandaise, we're using heat to emulsify. So we have to do that very carefully because we don't want scrambled egg emulsification. Oops, I accidentally hit child lock. Uh-oh. Might have to turn this off. Seriously, people. Rick, do you mind coming and unplugging this and replugging it back in? I didn't even know child lock was a thing or how to undo it. So I'm gonna, the recipe is here. I kind of go into detail about it. And the most important thing is that you create that sabayon. So some of you know what a sabayon is because you've had maybe zabaglione at an Italian restaurant with strawberries. And so it's the same idea. What we're doing is we're taking the egg yolk and we're whisking it with some cold water and we're making it really frothy. And then we're going to start adding our oil. And the oil in this case isn't butter. We're adding our fat. So I have had the butter, which is going to be this camera again. I have had the butter over there melted, and actually a lot of the milk solids have gone to the bottom. I'm going to have to take off the rest of them. So clarifying the butter is just a technique, and not every chef will clarify their butter for a hollandaise. Some chefs prefer to leave it. I tend to clarify it because that's how I was taught. So, but I have a good friend who's a chef and she says she never clarifies it. Her chef told her when she was in school, told her she didn't have to. So different chefs. That's why it's good to go to different places and different people. Okay, so we need to keep this butter warm, but not too hot. So I'm gonna keep it on the stove, but the stove, I've actually turned it down. I do need a quick second, I apologize, to rinse that whisk off, and then I'm going to get started on the, get it started. Oh, Richard's gonna do it for me. Yes, please. I'm gonna get it started on the hollandaise. And then we have a couple options with our hollandaise. I'm looking at our time here. We're gonna definitely make the béarnaise, and then we'll talk about some of the derivatives I shared with you and how those impact what you do, okay? So I know that you'll see recipes that tell you to use a water bath to simmer some water in a pan and put a bowl over it. I think that gives you a flabby sauce. It doesn't let you create the sabayon. That said, you're kind of playing a little bit, you're tempting fate a little bit. So this is 3 egg yolks. And I'm gonna get some cold water. Okay, so it's about 1 tablespoon of water per egg yolk. And that's just gonna help. It's kind of gonna give you a little bit of space before you add the butter. It gives you a little leeway on this. So the first thing you need to do is really whisk this, okay? It does not need to be on the stove at this point. You want it to become frothy and light. So we don't have any heat at this point. Right now, what we're working on is making that papaya. And we're working on our arm muscles, so we're strong. It's getting there, it's almost there. Doing the step properly actually really makes a big difference because this will help you create a real emulsification and it won't be too thin. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. We're going to bring our butter over. Trying to remember where I put my ladle. That's fine. Okay. So we're going to turn this on. You probably want about a medium. About a medium high. We're going to do this fast, but we don't want to do it too fast. So you do not walk away and do anything else unless you want to eat scrambled eggs instead of hollandaise. And the hollandaise is actually the very last thing you do in your meal. So whether you're going to have it with eggs Benedict, or you're going to have it over asparagus, or maybe you're going to make the hollandaise mousse and you're going to put it with some fish, you want to do it last. Now, can you see how it's getting thick? It's almost there already. We want to cook it a tiny bit longer. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? I have to do this all over again, right? But do not be afraid to pull it off the heat. It's actually better to pull it off heat. Eggs cook at 145 degrees, and that is not very hot. Ooh, I accidentally turned it up. There we go. Okay. All right. I think that's as far as I'm willing to push it. Turn my heat off. I'm going to switch places. I'm going to put my butter. You don't want your butter too hot. And you do want to whisk this for, you want to bring some of this heat off the butter because you don't want anything to curdle or bring it off the eggs. Okay. So take your ladle. It's okay if there's a little bit of those milk solids in that butter. It's not going to hurt anything. You don't want to take too long with this step, but you also don't want to go too fast. I know, that's as clear as mud, right? You want to let the emulsification grab, but you don't want to lose so much heat that you have cold sauce at the end. Okay. Let's see if Rich can see if that's not too warm now. I can bring it over here. Should be able to handle all of this butter. We're pretty close to it. Oh, and you definitely don't want heat while you're doing this. The sauce will break, no question. So you have to kind of find a way to be patient with it. Whisk, whisk, whisk. Beautiful. You guys see that? See how it actually does look like mayonnaise. All right. So that is our hollandaise base. All right, that's our sabayon with the egg yolk, but the butter emulsified into it.
Quick question, Amoreena.
Yes.
Andy would like to know, how can you tell when the sauce breaks?
Because the oil, it will be separated. The oil won't be part of it anymore. The fat, I keep calling it oil, but it is, it's fat. The butter will have separated. It won't mix. Like it's not broken now because it's all creamy. If it's broken, usually if it's going to break, it's because you've overcooked your eggs. All right. So I should have put this in. I should have put this one in the oven to warm up so that we had a warm thing. But I'm going to separate this a little bit because I want us to make both the hollandaise and the béarnaise. You do want to work relatively fast. I do not have any salt at this point, so I know it needs salt. You can always add more. Can't take it out. Okay. And then I have my lemon juice. So I'm not going to add all the lemon juice because I separated my hollandaise out so we can make some of the béarnaise with it. This is going to be very much about flavor. I'm eyeballing it for now. And then a little, just a tiny bit of cayenne pepper. It's really not to make it spicy. It's just to add a back note to it. It just kind of adds a little, je sais quoi, as they say. All right. I'll wash my hands. Okay. I think it needs a little more lemon juice. And a little more salt. So you want it to be not so lemony that it will dominate whatever. You don't want it to be so lemony that it dominates the butter. The whole point of the sauce, you're getting this much butter, is that you can taste the butter. But also the lemon kind of lifts it a little bit. So there's our hollandaise. In a minute, actually, I'll do it now. Put it in. Okay. So one of the derivatives I mentioned was the mousseline. What's it called? Sauce mousseline, which was with whipped cream. So unsweetened whipped cream, just whipped cream. Out of the way. I'm estimating it's about the amount we need. Whenever you add cream to something, whipped cream to something, you want to fold it in. I can switch over here. So the point is to not kill all the air. You want it to be like a mousse, like a chocolate mousse, right? This is great with fish, vegetables. I have some asparagus. So I just want to get it to where we're not seeing any more chunks of white from the mousse, from the whipped cream, but it's still a lot lighter than it was. And it's still warm. It's not going to be hot, but it is going to be warm. If it was hot, it would just melt the whipped cream. All right, let's do this a little bit. But if you look, you can really see the difference in texture between the one I'm going to use for béarnaise and the mousse. I keep forgetting where I put my stuff. Bruce, do you see the asparagus? Oh, sorry, there it is. Sorry, guys. Working in your own kitchen for this is a challenge. Okay, so I blanched some asparagus earlier. You know, in real life, you'd probably saute these a little bit, warm them up. Actually, let's just do. You have to have some color, right? So add just a touch of paprika in there, just to add a little color. There you go. We're just gonna put it on this camera. It's gonna be delicious. I'll let Rich taste it. Okay, so now we need to get back to it, and we need to make our béarnaise.
Amoreena, just so you know,
yes.
We're all coming over to your house.
That's fine. When it's not a pandemic, we can have a giant dinner party. I'm good. Okay, so yeah, put it outside. Okay, so I went ahead and I made the reduction in advance. So it's white wine and white wine vinegar and shallots, and then the stems from fresh tarragon. So I actually like to keep the shallots in there. I always take out the tarragon stems, but the shallots themselves, I like that texture. And I often do it, I often put this over steak. So I did save some of that steak. We'll put some over some steak. Once again, I serve with pommes-frites. It's funny because I'm not really a big French fry person, but when I'm having certain sauces and dishes, I like French fries. So I have a little bit of tarragon here. Give it a quick chop. Actually, I want to keep that. So just kind of bunch it up. It's already been washed. Kind of bunch it up. Tarragon is a flavor not everyone loves. So if you don't like tarragon, you don't have to use it. You can actually use dill if you prefer. It's not going to be a classic sauce then, but who cares, right? There's no French chef sitting in your kitchen at home telling you what not to do. Just do whatever you want. Do the things that you like. Figure out the flavors that you like the best, and take recipes that you think sound good and make them your recipe by adding the flavors that you like. I do like tarragon, so add the tarragon. And we have less, obviously, than we would with a full recipe. So it's definitely going to be a time where you have to taste it and see what works. The sauce, ideally, you would actually do this right away. You wouldn't wait and make another dish and then come back to it, so the sauce would still be warm. Need salt. I forgot we didn't have any salt. A little black pepper. I mean, white pepper. It's good. Okay. Get the stuff out of the way. Let's get our steak out and get another plate out. Okay, so warm plates. Always use warm plates for warm food. Otherwise, you put your hot food on cold plates and your food is cold. Now, I wouldn't normally have sliced steak and then put it in the oven again because that does dry it out, but I wanted to be efficient, so don't slice your steak until it's time to serve.
Amoreena, someone wants to know what temperature your oven is right now. Oh, there.
80.
For you.
Oh, it's at 80. I knew that it was going to sit there for a while, so I didn't want it. I just wanted to keep it warm. I didn't want it to get too hot. I didn't want it to start to cook again. I didn't want to be like, this well-done steak was brought to you by an overheated oven. So I will be honest, if it was just me, I would like pour this whole thing on my steak. I love Hollandaise. It's my favorite sauce. But I tried to be good this time. So decorate it with a little bit of a frond there. Right. There we go. That's my favorite. I will be honest. Steak with béarnaise and some homemade pommes that's like my perfect meal.
Beautiful. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. So I know we're coming up on almost 9 o'clock. I need to make sure we have plenty of time to for TNA for Q&A. God, Amoreena and her. I know. My friends will never gonna hear the end of that one. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Everyone is just raving it up here in the chat. Like, we're all coming over. We're all checking in from far and wide. Noah, is it you who's here from Finland? Is that what you said? My goodness, you're up early.
Yeah, it's 6 a.m. here. This is Noah is actually my son. It's Joel. But originally I got to taste Am's great cooking in San Jose, but we're in Finland for a year.
That's so cool. Thanks for being here.
Joel.
Yeah, I am.
How did you taste her cooking? Just at her house, or was it a cooking class?
Yeah, we're part of the group of friends, and I like to cook, but nobody matches Am's great cooking. Well, others in the group are pretty up there too, but it's always wonderful to have some of her great sauces as well as the different things that she comes up with.
That's fantastic. Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I thought I saw a sleepy face poke into the side there.
That was the real Noah. The kids are just getting up for school right now.
Wow. Well, thank you, Joel, for tuning in. I knew it was going to be a super early morning for you.
I'm scared, but I'm ready to make some sauces.
You can do it. You can watch the video over and over.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh, they all want me to taste the steak, apparently.
Oh, yeah. And if you have questions, everyone, you can turn on your mics and ask, or you can type them into the chat, and I'll ask for you, whatever you prefer.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's some eating happening.
You can't leave us hanging. We have to hear what it tastes like.
Sorry. Don't want to eat on camera. It's good. Like I said, what I like about béarnaise is that it balances out the meatiness of the beef. Does that make sense? It almost, to me, lightens it up. I know it seems like it's a really heavy sauce, but if you make hollandaise or a béarnaise correctly, it's actually it's light and it has fluffy. That's why you want to get all that air in it from the start. And then the vinegar in the béarnaise really helps elevate it. It's good. Anyone else? How'd I do, friends who've seen me cook a million times? Mike, Julie.
Lots of thumbs up in the chat.
Okay, good.
I want to know, Catherine, are you here? Can you give us like the French stamp of approval? Oh, she may not be here.
Oh, Sheila Bird, yeah.
I'm looking through the chat to see if there are any more questions, and I've just seen like, great, amazing, awesome, that looks delicious.
Well, I know that there are a lot of really good cooks already on this Zoom, so I'm sure for some of you, you're like, yeah, we know Amoreena, but it's all right.
Amoreena, tell us a little bit about. I know you cook, you teach classes sometimes, and obviously things are different during that pandemic. Where and what are you teaching now, and how can people find you if they want to learn more from you?
Well, most of you know where to find me, but you could find me at Amoreena Lucero at gmail.com or at Fair Kitchen, which maybe Rich can type that in the chat so people have that information. Fair Kitchen is my catering company slash, I tend to just do private chef, well, when we're not having a pandemic, private chef dinners more than catering big events. I prefer to cater someone's birthday party or anniversary party where it's a more intimate setting, because I think that's where I can do the big stuff, but I prefer to give more one-on-one service. And then I will teach someone to cook whatever they want to learn. Obviously, I'm not an expert in, traditional Szechuan food or anything like that, but I have a solid French foundation, and I'm comfortable with Italian and a few other cuisines.
Someone wants to know if you could use any of these sauces for fish.
Yes, actually, the Béarnaise is great with fish, and actually Hollandaise, and the Hollandaise, the mousseline is great with fish as well.
Great. Hey, Amoreena, will you tell us a little bit about your experience working at the restaurant in France?
Yeah. Well, it's 5 years ago now. Actually, it was just about now that I arrived. I arrived on the 14th. The 15th of February in 2016. And it was my first experience in a restaurant of that level. So I wasn't sure what to think, but I really had fun. I didn't have to learn as much French as I wanted to, because everyone wanted to speak English with me so they could practice, and they wanted me to help them speak better English. But from a kitchen perspective, it was very much a traditional structure. There was an executive chef and 2 sous chefs, and then what they call demi-chefs, which was kind of what we call line cooks probably, and chef de partie. So I was primarily doing why am I drawing a blank on what slide I was in? But I was primarily helping with the first course, the entrees. So in France, the entree is the beginning, what you start with, the appetizers and the amuse-bouche. And then I did a little bit of the meat. I should say a French kitchen is broken into groups. So there's poisson, there's viande. So viande is meat and poisson is fish. And then there's like the hors d'oeuvre station. But that in France is not quite the same as it is here. It's garde manger is what I was in. So I don't know. The chef never threw anything at me, and he never yelled at me. He would actually look at me and roll his eyes when some of the other younger cooks were not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it was a good experience. It was very positive. I got to make a plate for some Michelin judges a couple times. That's intimidating, but it was fun. So I see little comments coming up, but I can't read them yet. So
Anne has a question. Anne, what are you asking about? No rats into your chef house?
No. I did have to wear the toque, though. We would have to wear it during service, even though no one actually could see us. We'd have to wear the toque, which is the tall white hat, like the classic chef hat. Yeah, we had to wear those. It was fun. I felt kind of silly, I have to be honest, but it was fun to do.
Oh, ratatouille. Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
I saw that.
I thought maybe you were talking about ratatouille.
Does anyone else have questions for Amoreena? Wine pairing suggestions. So that's a good one.
Of course, Jennifer is asking that one. I can see that name. I would, Paul. What would Paul and Ruth suggest? I would actually probably, with a Béarnaise sauce, I would go with a lighter red wine. Maybe in it something in the Italian family, or actually, no, I take that back. I would use a red from Loire. Paul, do you agree? And then with the steak au poivre, I would stick with maybe a Cap Franc or a Cab Sauv Cap Franc blend. You want a heavier wine, but nothing too heavy, because you don't want it to kind of take over that sauce, and you want some acidity. There's a lot of fat in that sauce. I don't know. There are some experts on this call. I know that. So on the Zoom.
There are a number of people saying you have to do this again.
I would, yes, of course.
Those of you who are calling for an encore, type into the chat or just call out what you'd like to see Amoreena teach about if she does this again. because we talked about a lot of different things, and Amber said, "Oh, sauces are great. What would you like to see?" Type
Yeah, we only did one mother sauce. By the way, that Hollandaise is a mother sauce. We did one. There's 5. So
Sandy says breads. Ooh, yeah. I'd love to bake. I'd watch that one.
I am not a huge baker. I will be honest. I can make bread. I would probably do something not a sourdough. I would do I could do a yeasted bread, but that'd be a better in-person class where today we're gonna meet and we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna meet again tomorrow and we're gonna do the next step. But I like that idea. I'm wondering if my cousin John from Massachusetts made it on the call. Do you see John Heyman on the call, or is he's there? Can you say hi?
Look, John.
It was late. That's okay. I just thought if he was there, I would shout out because he's 3 hours ahead. So not quite as late as it would be for Joel, or early for Joel.
He can watch it on YouTube. We'll have the video, and I'll have it up by the middle of next week. Oh, Anne wants to know about pastas, and Sandy wants to know about desserts, and I sign on to both of those.
Pasta is fun. We could make some filled pastas. We could talk about how you cut them. Pasta desserts. Yep, we can do that.
Very nice. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you all had fun and learned a little something today. I appreciate you all being here and signing up.